Committee on Joint School Services 2020. Nice. January 2nd, 2020, meeting of the Committee on Joint School Services. Would we please stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, I believe in everybody's seat you should have a copy of the December 12th and December 19th minutes. Give everybody a little bit of time to look over those and entertain a motion when they're ready.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Our next item is Chairman's report. It's been a busy couple weeks. I spoke with Terry Austin today. We'd spoken with all the other, with Mr. Lanford and Ms. Onitis about getting on their board meetings, agendas for this coming month. And as you all may remember, Terry Austin was a little unsure about how things were going to go at the state level because the person we had been working with on the state level was relieved of their duties, and there is now a new person in that position. He has set up a meeting time for a few of us to go to Richmond and meet with that person to discuss our proposal, our project, I guess you would. And it was one of the people that we had actually met when he worked at the Department of Education. We went to his office and met him in July on our Richmond trip. Delegate Austin would like for us to meet with them and discuss our project, see how much they want to see, what kind of details they're interested in. So at this time, I don't think that we're going to be working on I don't think we're going to need to meet with the City Council and the Board of Supervisors until we meet with them and discuss what they're interested in learning. So I guess one of our agenda items is kind of getting moved around, but it sounds like that Delegate Austin is things are definitely a lot different in Richmond because of kind of the change in power and the people in all the different positions. So it's going to definitely be a different year. So he wants to meet with all them and find out what they need, because it seems like it's going to be completely new territory for him and a lot of the committee members and people that will be involved with this. I spoke with Jim Regenball as well. Jim, as you know, was our fiscal analyst, and he is very much interested in us writing some sort of legislation, helping us write legislation, because he feels like it's that the state has a lot of excess money right now, and he's interested in us trying to get some of that, whether we try to get it in this legislative session or bookmark it for the 2021 session. And that's one of the things we're going to discuss in Richmond. So Mr. Arrett said he would be available to go, and Delegate Austin was interested in possibly the city manager and county administrator going on to Richmond to meet with those folks, if that's okay with this board. Does everybody feel good about that?
And to be clear, that's at least some members of the Appropriations Committee.
Right. Some of the people from the House Appropriations, the new analyst for the House Appropriations will be one of the people that we will be meeting with, and hopefully we'll be able to meet with the state secretary or the state superintendent, James Land, to find out. Originally Susan Hogue, the person that we had met with.
You have a hand raised at the time.
Yes.
I just have a question for point of clarification. So you don't need no one from the committee needs to be on any of the governing bodies agendas for next week?
I don't believe so. We talked about a resolution.
Well, I think maybe presenting and having the governing bodies have a discussion on whether or not they're in support of the joint resolution. You don't necessarily have to draft it. And I don't know no
There-
feeling in
there's-
Richmond that you
there's
have the
nothing
governing
to
body
resolute.
support or not support?
No, I don't,
Okay.
we need to meet with Delegate Austin and see what his recommendations are first and see what also the analyst says before, and then come back to our boards. So, originally, when we had talked to Ms. Hoag, you know, she had given us kind of an outline of how things worked, and we had met with the Department of Education as well. You know, as we all know, everyone on this committee, we need to come up with a plan, and then it has to be approved by the Department of Education, the Board of Supervisors, the City Council, and the 2 school boards. Until we come up with a plan, there's not really much we can propose to those groups. If we decide after meeting with that group on the 14th that, you know, we want to do something, then we're going to come back to each individual board with a possible resolution, depending on what they ask. Quick.
It looks to me like that, as I just heard, it would be a stronger trip to Richmond if you could go and say, we've got at least reasonably good support from governing bodies and both school boards. If we go down there, you're going down there now with uncertainties, and there are always going to be uncertainties
Yeah, but
until
you're
we...
trying to get support from like
Josh,
15 people that have not
Josh.
been involved.
Hey.
And I don't-
So let
they're
me
not
explain
involved,
why
they're not
we're
involved in
going
this
down there. We're going down there, and we're not going to have any more audience participation. We are going down there to find out what our delegate is interested in us doing, and what he thinks we can achieve in this legislative session. You know, it has to come back to this committee before we make any decisions. But we're going to talk to the folks on these different subcommittees and find out, you know, what are they thinking? Do they want us to have everything in 22.1-25 completed before we make a proposal to them? Or do they think that we could earmark money for the 2021 legislative session? And that's one of the things that there's no reason to propose things to our different boards if we don't know what we're proposing at this point.
Or how to propose it.
Or how to
But you're
propose it.
proposing to Richmond that these boards may not even want it.
We're not proposing anything. We're going to come back to this committee after we meet with them and discuss what we found out in Richmond and go from there.
I think too, maybe taking the temperature of some of the folks in Richmond. I mean, we, almost all of us were there with presumably a different group of people, or what would have been a different group of people back there in the summer. Just in talking with a lot of folks in the community, I mean, I've had people express healthy skepticism on, you know, the state doesn't always do what the state says they're going to do. So I think if nothing else, us making sure that we have at least what those folks on the Appropriations Committee would deem as their preferred path for us going forward. I think that's a pretty prudent way for us to advance. And whether or not that what comes out of that is something that we bring back for immediate action, or whether it's something that you know, we bring back here and we take a more measured approach with it. I think most people that have looked at our fiscal analyzation, is everybody comfortable with what has been done, with what Mr. Reginbald and Mr. Salmon have done? Everybody comfortable with that? And from that, I do believe, you know, we can develop some good, healthy estimates for what a new division would need in support from the state. So as Mr. Wright said, I think there's a chicken or the egg concept here, but at some point, the state and us as a local group need to commit on some level. I think we can all pretty much agree on that. And whether that comes from the state giving a continued thumbs up, if you will, or whether they need us to come with something more complete, say what's contained in 22.1-25. Yes, I do like your saying.
Well, don't we have to have a plan approved by the state school board before we can go into it, implement anything?
Absolutely.
Before we
All right.
take it to the board.
They're part of this
Okay,
meeting.
then why are we moving so fast?
I don't
Seems like
know.
maybe we're slowing down.
Yeah. So that, so
And
that
I
is one of
think
the things that, you know,
It's just the fact that, you know, I don't mind asking for money, but I don't want to ask for money unless we have a plan that's in place. And I think we're moving too fast on this. I think we need to sit down, and I think we need to talk a lot of things out that we haven't even discussed yet in order to arrive at a date for implementation. You know, and I realize that the last time we talked, we insinuated that it would be school year 2021. I don't think it's going to happen. And I think that I've heard from both superintendents that schools are doing okay at this point in time. So if it ain't broke, let's not fix it. Let's go and think about augmenting on what's good and coming up with a plan that's fair and equitable for everybody and that everybody agrees on before we ask for the money. Because if you get the money in this coming up biennial, are you going to spend it? You can't.
no.
That's correct. So we have to have an approved plan. And I'm sorry, I just think that we're going too fast on it.
Well,
Well, I think what Jacob's doing is going down. You got new people in Richmond. We got to make sure that those folks are on board with the same communication that we had in July with the old folks. And that's what we got to get clear.
Well, I think you can test the waters, but I also think that, number one, we haven't heard about legislation on governance that we've given. And it's what we're doing with the budget. We haven't really fully talked about that. We've had recommendations from those, but those recommendations did not include medical insurance. And
they did.
therefore, that's something
They did.
we-
I mean, that was a number that was listed in our study.
Well-
He just didn't want to make a recommendation on it because he felt like that was up to us to decide where we want to go with that.
Well, and that's something we
But,
have to talk about.
but as far as the, you're right, we do need to figure out all these things. And as far as the governance goes, that's one of the things that we'll talk to them about. How would they like to see us present this governance idea that we've talked about? You know, it's uncharted territory. And so we need to have somebody that can kind of help guide us through. And we need somebody that works for the state to help us get through, get to where we need to be.
Let's,
I agree with
let's,
that.
let's be clear, the governance option that we all sort of agreed upon has to,
Be
the
approved.
state has to make some action there to make that possible.
And I'll have to go through the General Assembly.
Right.
That's the reason for the meeting. I mean, you have to know, what we're doing requires
Testing the
legislation.
waters.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically what you're doing,
This is a very non-committal meeting, but it's more of an information gathering.
as long as it's non-committal.
Yeah, and it's going to give us an idea. And what I would like to do is I would like to schedule a meeting. If we're going to go down there on January 14th and meet with these folks, I would like to set a meeting with this committee on Thursday, January 16th, so we can just discuss what we learned, whether it's good, bad, whether we're going to propose something or not. At least we can talk about it. It'll be fresh on our minds, and everybody can kind of get an idea.
Don't we also anticipate invoices coming between now and then?
And we will have invoices and things.
From what I understand, this meeting is solely an if I could, would you meeting. If you do this, can we do this? If we can do this, will you do that? And I think that you've got to open those lines of communication and figure out the path of least resistance to get approval if you have a plan. I mean, I think that this is imperative to have that meeting. I really agree.
I apologize for interrupting, but I was with this group in the beginning, and the general consensus was that this wasn't all about money, and I understand revenues and money is a part of it, but in the meetings I've attended, 99% of discussion has been about money. And that's where Alan brings up, there are a lot of other situations in that, and it's back in a situation that we have a community, the people who are being affected, the teachers, the students, the custodians, the maintenance folks, all those people are affected by this. There should be some input. These meetings that are private meetings, decisions are made and they came in and presented. We're not even allowed to speak. But the very second meeting, because I was at the second informal meeting, the general consensus was that it wasn't all about the finances and the money. There are all these other reasons, and there's been very little discussion.
You have people running their mouths at the beginning of this. How are you not allowed to speak? Were you at the last meeting?
I'm gonna, Josh.
Half the people in this room that
Josh, I'm gonna ask both of you to leave if
you need to
don't.
control your meeting, Chairman.
All right,
Because you keep letting
all right,
people know-
Josh. One more time, you're out. Okay? We can't have everybody. We can't have a free for all, and we can't be putting each other down. You know, this is we are here to discuss a possibility that our delegate has offered us, and it is very non-committal. It should be non-confrontational. You know, and to Mr. Clemens' point, the reason we have discussed so much stuff about money is because those are steps that we need to take. And we are going to come up with a plan that, you know, there's a time that if we can get through these hurdles, we will talk about different things like curriculum and things like that. But there are hurdles that we have to get through first. And unfortunately, they don't have as much to do with the kids. You know, we are all here for the benefit of the kids of the Allegheny Highlands. You know, that's why we're here. But we know that there are adult things that we have to get through before we get to the kid things.
Well, finance and governance were the two biggest topics we agreed we had to address before anything else. You can't match salaries, you can't match benefits, and bring everybody to an equal scenario without talking about finance and money. So those are the two topics that you have to address. You have to figure out how to make it financially feasible and perpetual. And you can't do that without the topic of finance and dollars and cents.
I'd like to hear from this side of the table if we could. I'm sure we... Sure, Tom, Erica?
When this committee first started, we agreed as a committee that we were going to look at three things. We were going to look at salary equalization, we were going to look at how we were going to fund this, and we were going to look at governance. None of those three can be accomplished without legislative action. It doesn't matter what kind of governance we come up with, there's got to be legislative action because it's establishing a new board, and you can't put the two boards that exist together legally. That would make you a 12-member board, and you can't have more than that. So we've come up with a plan for governance. Whether the General Assembly approves it or not, I don't know, but that's the plan we came up with. We've come up with numbers that will give us salary equalization, and we've looked at several different issues involving financing. At the last meeting or the meeting before last, we discussed forming committees to start looking at some of the very things that Mr. Clemens is addressing. Delegate Austin wasn't comfortable with us presenting legislation at this point with the way things look now. So that addresses Mr. Tucker's issue with slowing down. We're not going to get any legislation in by the, what is the 8th or the 15th?
The 8th is before.
We're not going to get any legislation in by then. So, you know, we've slowed down. Anybody that hasn't looked at this report and has had an opportunity to look at it is doing a disservice to this community, to the students in the school systems, and to the taxpayers of the city and the county. There are some things in this report that are eye-opening. You can go to the very last page and look at how we do in SOLs. We have not, and I'm not blaming, I'm not accusing, I'm just saying we don't stand up very well on SOLs, which is definitely about the kids. They're the ones taking the tests and they're not passing. They're coming into 60 percentiles. The state averages are in the 80 percentiles on most of them. That to me should be an issue that we want to address.
So combining the schools will make the SOLs?
I don't know, that's what we need to be looking at. But our SOLs certainly don't meet the state average, which is 20%, we're 20 percentile less on some of the SOLs.
I see, but teacher pay is way less.
Not necessarily. If you look at the report, the teacher's pay is not that far out of whack statewide. We're not that over, our teachers are not that overpaid according to the report. Covington is considered a distressed area physically, according to this report, according to state reports. We're in we're in 5th place statewide physical distress. This report says that one of the reasons we're distressed is because of this money we're spending on schools. How do you fix that? I don't know. It's all ties together. Money is going to play a part in this. Raising up test scores needs to play a part in this. How can we better educate the students has got to be the main function we're doing, the main thing. But at the same time, if we don't address the financial side of it, we're going to run into some problems that we can't fix. That's, that's all there is to it. Buena Vista is a comparable community to Covington, size-wise. We're both in the 6,000 range. There's proper real estate property tax in Buena Vista is 40 cents higher than Covington's. Do we have to increase our tax rate 40 cents to take care of these problems we're running into? I hope to God not. We've got a lot of issues we need to be looking at, and all of them play a role in what we're trying to do. And again, if you've had access to this report and you haven't read it, and you haven't looked at it, you're doing a disservice to the students of Allegheny County.